Okay, so hi everyone, very warm welcome. This repetition is so we have it on record that this meeting is being recorded. Very warm welcome to the Women and Gender Book Club. If you're meeting for the first time, please do introduce yourself. You can put something in the chat box or speak out, whatever. Highly recommended to keep your video on so we feel like we're talking to each other. And that would be really nice, but no compulsions. The format is very simple. We just take it a lot on the go. We just start talking about certain themes in the book. And if you have any comments, you want to add more things, um, absolutely welcome to do that. At 6 o'clock, we will be joined by the author for a short interaction. And in the meantime, we start talking a little bit about the book that the stories that we've selected for today. This is the first time that we're doing a short piece along with another, in conversation with another smaller book. So let's see how that goes. I'm very open to suggestions about whether you appreciated it or not. Okay. First things first, I think what was interesting to me was that there is a continuation between between the way that we were talking about the liberation of Sita last time in the book club and the kind of parts that were invisible that come very much to the fore in the books that we're discussing today, right? There is upper caste hegemony in a lot of mythology. There is a way in which people from the scheduled castes and scheduled tribes are treated as either rakshas or, outsiders. And you see that these stories are very different in that they make these characters the main characters of the story, right? It is their story in their words. It is something that you don't see usually. So I really did want to open it up by talking about the mythology discussion. We did talk about Sita last time, but obviously um, the Mahasweta Devi's work on Draupadi picks up from another very important mythological figure of Draupadi. And I don't know if any of you read the PDF which has Spivak's forward in it, right? Where she does talk about the sort of interrelatedness of the main character Draupadi here and the ways in which the robing and disrobing of Draupadi happens in kind of parallel and opposite to each other in the epic and in the story, right? So I think it was very interesting to me that there is an element of agency in both those characters, right? In Draupadi, that's okay, Sonia, no problem. In the Draupadi retelling, right, which is of the Mahabharata, you see that there is a point at which Draupadi is asking whether the Pandavas have a right to stake her, because if they were slaves, can a slave own anything, right? And that's one of the big legal questions that she asks. If you haven't, then Devdas Patnaik work on Jaya and even the works on Draupadi by Chitra Banerjee Divakurni are interesting standpoints to look at Draupadi as an agentive woman, right? But her modesty is kept together by Krishna's intervention in robing her. And in an absolute sort of mirror image of that, the agentive aspect of Draupadi in the Mahasweta Devi's work is about agency in disrobing. Because if you take that away from this person, then what else is there to take, right? When in the last sort of climax scene of the story, she says, um, okay, this is what you want, then take it. What else? And then you see that the person who is supposed to be the oppressor gets terrified of the oppressed. So I just wanted to see if anyone else thought of other interesting parallels between how agency is expressed by these two women and how this retelling is talking about modesty not as a virtue, but as something that this Draupadi overcomes. So I just want to open with that. Hi, Udita. Okay, sorry, you muted. Would anyone like to jump in? Okay, I'm just going to see. Okay. Varshaji, if you're saying something, it's muted. But you're still muted, sorry. Apologies. Yeah, now you're
No,
unmuted. Yeah.
yeah. So I agree with what you're saying, that once, the men who are disrobing the tribal woman, who is also called Draupadi, and they do whatever they want through the night. But after that, when she does it and challenges that police officer herself, then he's taken aback. So, and the end comes so suddenly, and it is so unexpected that it acquires a lot of power. So, mm, I think just challenging the men's vision of, you know, how to dishonor a woman, when that is taken away, there's nothing left.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, there's this whole feminist discourse about how, in a way for men to sort of preserve their power is to place their honor in women's vaginas, right? And once that stops being of consequence, like we see that happens in the story, you see that power is taken away because if men's battles are being fought on women's bodies, and then women's bodies stop reacting in the way that we expect them to, it is an act of taking back the power. So yeah, I thought that was really powerful. Um, would anyone like to jump in with any thoughts on how the short story made them feel, or what were they expecting? Some anything about the writing, or yeah, just opening thoughts on Draupadi.
Yeah, so Tanya, this pairing is actually very interesting for me because I have actually read before Mahashweta Devi and Adivasi Will Not Dance together as part of my course.
Oh,
So it
really?
was, yeah, I did. And it was part of like, we had this big bunch. So Mahashweta Devi has written breast stories also. So
Mm-hmm.
we had that text and then Adivasi Will Not Dance together. And then we were supposed to compare it. It was very, it felt like I was back in the university
Oh,
comparing those
wow.
two texts and,
This is so
really enjoying
instrumental.
the parallels like those two texts bring in. And I think that time also the discussion revolved around taking back agency, uh, especially related to body. But this time I think because I'm reading something in a very similar phase, I did not want to just go into okay, I'm seeing what I'm told to see, but I also wanted to see what else can be brought into it. And I think the imagery of breast is really has really caught my attention in this text.
Mm-hmm.
How Mahashweta Devi keeps talking about the breasts of I'm forgetting the protagonist's name, Draupadi, and then the whole idea of liberation. So I went into this whole tangent about thinking about Nangeli and like whole movement about how it's not just about your own body, but so
Mm-hmm.
it's not just taking control of your own body, but
Mm-hmm.
also using your body as a mechanism to assert power, is
Yeah.
what I uh, really got from this text. Yeah.
That's so lovely. Thank you so much, Kalpita, for sharing that. And let definitely will come to like when we make the transition, would want to know a little bit more about how you did this in your course. This was an incidental way in which I combined this, but I'm so happy that this is something that speaks to you. And yeah, and you're right. Like in the end, I think of the story, you see that Draupadi is using her breast to push this soldier away back. There's a imagery there of her just pushing against him, and so something which is supposed to be covered and something that is expected to be hidden in uh, where modesty and virtue resides. You see that is being used to as a tool in some ways, right? Despite being battered, etc., etc., in terms of body. Um, so definitely there. Zena, were you? I thought you were going to say something.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, the Adivasi will not dance was, I mean, yeah, I really liked it. I also think like the whole Jharkhand mention is really close to home. So yeah, for me, like I have grown up seeing Santhal tribe really close, but never, it was such a, I think, segregated society that, you don't know like what's going on in their homes. But I think these stories made me feel like I think I had a chat with Nate the other day, and we were just saying that it just makes me feel that they are also like us. So all of the stories had similar like what women will go through, or what, not to like, say that they don't have issues or something, but also like the first thing about not eating meat, the first chapter, that was really interesting, because I've had that, like I eat meat, and then you go to a vegetarian society and you look down upon and stuff. So it was like very relatable as well. But then also I think few stories about women going into sex work because they have just no money, and brutally getting raped. I think that was really moving. But yeah, I think the last chapter, the main one, the Adivasi will not dance, was the favorite one, I think. Yeah. So yeah, Draupadi, because I don't know the whole Mahabharata so in detail, so I just can't comment on it, because I like the story, and I like the concept that you merged the two, because it is also from a tribal side, and like it was, I think, a bit more political than the stories in my respect, but a bit more probably a fight from Draupadi. But yeah, I don't think I have got much comment except like women's body and agency, and but yeah, the short stories, they were really good, I thought.
Thank you for sharing that. Would anyone else like to jump in? Just seeing if anyone has. Okay, but yeah, go for it, Vatsala.
Kalpita pointed out, and it reminded me of the Manipuri women's protest against AFSPA. And there also, middle-aged women had walked naked, said, Indian men rape us too. So it's like what Mahasita wrote, or how realities were not until very long ago. Kind of, you find the same agency and women taking it back. So like it just immediately sent me there.
Absolutely. I think the politics of it, right? Like Zena was also saying, it's inherent. Obviously, it's very out there explicitly in Draupadi, but even in the Adivasi will not dance. As far as I was concerned, there is constantly a politics that is underplaying it, right? The politics of extractive mining, the politics of forced, economically forced prostitution, the politics of food and religion, right? And being at the sort of borders of religion in some ways. You're neither inside nor outside, as the Adivasi in some of the stories you see, right? Like you're not assimilated entirely. So, to me, I think, yes, there is a way in which both these books speak to each other through a particular politics of the oppressed, and but they do not do it in a way that victimizes the protagonist, right? Even when bad things are happening to them, you see, especially for instance, in the last story, the book itself is titled "The Adivasi Will Not Dance," right? It is an assertion of a certain identity. It is an assertion, a resistance of some kind. So to me, I think it was both empowering, both in the sense that the protagonist was someone you're not used to seeing in the protagonist role, right? As a main character, as a central character, you don't have enough books or enough stories talking about the experience of the marginalized. And then beyond that as well, there is an assertion of what their politics is, what their stand is, and how they want to go ahead in life. So, yeah, I think politics very much like Kalpita also said, and this is rooted with the feminist movements in Manipur, in Nagaland. Even now, like you have a whole sense of the specific role that women play in any kind of political engagement. So, to me, that was interesting. Um, but would other people like to jump in on the Adivasi Will Not Dance? What was your experience? Did you have a favorite story? Did you have something that you appreciated a little bit more or you didn't? I did not.
Story,
Sorry,
eating
sorry.
to the enemy. Somehow, despite the starkness, it also had a lot of humor in it. That is Sulochna's story, the maid, and who's always, she's like that Chekhov's woman who keeps on repeating the same mistake. So I think what makes all these stories so powerful is the fidelity of details, whether it is the the name of that Slochna's daughter, Mathabhangi, or the the description of the Koila Road in that the horse story. Uh, I think the details are almost so stark and so powerful that they stick somewhere in the mind. I am rereading this book after I think I had read it last when it had come out, and I still remembered that whole story. That last scene. It is just like an image that gets imprinted in your mind, uh, you know, and that little girl in the bus stand dancing. You can't they are stark, they're powerful, and they just don't leave you. And that little story, November is the month of migration. I think it just stays on with you. You may have read it 10 years back, but it just remains.
Absolutely.
And thanks to you that I reread them now.
I reread them after a long time as well, but yeah, like
Can I share something? Can I share
yeah,
something?
absolutely. And then Archana, I know you also had something to say. Please
So
go ahead, Swati.
yeah, it is just like that, I'm sorry that I haven't read the story that the PDF that you have shared, for the
Mhm.
simple reason that I'm into my final stages of my PhD submission, and my son is into his 12th board, etc. So I'm quite busy with all these things, but I do not want to miss these discussions. So when you talk about, these Adivasi women and the way and the experience with them, so I have a first-hand experience with them, both as a journalist and since I belong to Jharkhand, Dhanbad, so I grew up among these women, and definitely, what is being written about them, it is almost everywhere, media and research connected.
Sorry, Swati,
And
your net
my,
is sorry, your voice is cracking up a
pardon,
little bit. Your voice is cracking up a little bit. So could you,
are you able to hear me
yeah, right
now? Hello?
now I'm able to hear you. In between, it was cracking up. So if there's a better network area, maybe that,
Okay, okay.
yeah,
Okay, let me, I'll just activate my data. I was connected to Wi-Fi.
okay.
So I hope I'm audible right now.
Yes, yeah, much better. Thank you. Go ahead. Yeah.
So, as I said, that I had this first-hand experience, and the way these Adivasis or the tribals have been treated, and the way they are being treated everywhere across the country and the globe. The way they have been othered and they have been uh, what do you call it, exploited. That is definitely one part of the story. But for me, going between them, amongst them, they have been a part of our life right from our childhood. So they were the first women, uh, first empowered women whom I saw in my life. They are my role models. The way I've seen them. You know, uh, uh, like as I said, my hometown is Dhandad. So I would see these women wearing a single piece of cloth without any. They would never wear a blouse or a petticoat. They would just tie in a Bengali sari style, and they would travel from nearby Bengali, the outskirts of the town where all these Adivasis used to dwell, and they would travel from through local trains at 4 a.m. in the morning, and they would reach around 7 at Dhanbad, and they would sell vegetables over there, and they would leave by 10 or 11. I have never seen them, seen a male person accompanying them. I've seen them working in the coal mines. Some 30 years ago, they used to drive all those heavy machine and those vehicles, and they used to go inside the mines. Even if they were, they were the mazdoors when they used to go into the mines and get the coal out of the field. So I found them empowered because they were paid on a weekly basis. Saturday, Sundays, there used to be a local hart where they would come and do the purchase for throughout the week, and equally they will have their drinks, local whatever liquor kind of thing, which is homely grown made over there. And I would saw them sleeping here, having a fight, and using their money according to their wish. And I found them to be very empowered. So that is whenever I think about them, until now, whenever I go home, so they are the women who provide us with the vegetables and everything inside the house. They are the support staff at our home. So definitely they have been marginalized. They have a different kind. There is a most prominent story about them, but I find them to be very empowered and very progressive in many ways. So I have been residing in Delhi for more than 22 years, and there have been women who have come to our house to help us, as a nanny or something. And I have heard this story where their girls are, some are nurse, some is into teaching, some has done some kind of courses, beauty parlor courses. So that is a different kind of story where I find them to be more mobile, and their mobility
Yeah, that's
has a kind of thing that is got a kind of empowerment in their life. So we
yeah,
shouldn't forget that. So when we're talking, when we say that they have an important role, the way they have resisted the oppressive, so that comes from I think that is into their genes.
yeah. I
So
think
and
uh,
they are the first ones
I
when so they are the first ones who came out of their house, who went into the place, who drove a heavy vehicle. So
yeah,
we have to keep all these things in mind when we think about them, and the way they have resisted the oppressors or the exploiters, and they have participated in various movements. So we
yeah.
shouldn't. I think this is one point that I wanted to make about them.
Thanks so much, Swati. That's really, really nice of you to share. I was actually wondering, like, while you were speaking, right? Like, I was changing my mind again and again. In one sense, of course, I feel like there's also been literature that suggests that, tribal or scheduled caste women are sometimes more empowered in the sense that they are more mobile. There is also the sense in which we've understood more gender equal societies, especially amongst certain tribal regions. But at the same time, there is also an economic compulsion, right, to a lot of the ways in which women do step out of the house. Like there is a U-turn theory of U-shaped curve of mobility and economic female labor force participation in India, where you see that the moment women start earning a little more or men start earning a little more, if the net family income starts increasing, there's a drop in female labor force employment, which is also associated with sensitization tendencies or tendencies to emulate upper caste practices by keeping women within the home. And that has always been middle class respectability or upper class Sanskritic, sort of rituals around keeping women within the home. So I think in one way it is
Yes,
empowering.
yes,
Sorry, I was just wrapping up. I was saying that in one way it's empowering that women from other societies have had the opportunity that other women haven't, but in the other sense there is also a lot of economic compulsion and um, destitution, like some of the stories in the book will tell us, which kind of compel this kind of mobility. But you're right that women are doing this in a way that men aren't, even amongst those societies. So you see, patriarchy is manifesting still in that women are the ones sometimes going out and doing, like, the hard firework and collecting the fire and other things, etc., etc. But yeah, interesting thought. You had
yeah.
something to
Because
say.
Yeah, I just like to
I
add
brought
a
up.
little time.
Oh, sorry. Wait, Swati first, and then Kalpita, and then Archana.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I just wanted to draw a parallel because Jharkhand has been a part of Bengal, and then Odisha and Bihar also in its 200 years of history. So it has got that kind of what do you call amalgamation of culture over there. So it is very much close to the Bengali culture and Odia culture. And since it's an industrial district, or Jharkhand is an industrial state, so you have people from across the globe and across the country over there. So that definitely has an effect into it. But despite there is a huge difference, as you have told that women from the upper caste or privileged homes, they do not come out. I think it's not only upper class or people from affluent families. Even both Bihar and UP being an agrarian state, and they are the very much low into the in terms of income. But still, their women do not come out of their homes. They're not allowed. So,
Mhm.
in that kind of atmosphere, in Bengal, it was different. So there, it was all about art and culture and education. And every home that I knew, uh, women were busy with some kind of performing arts, whether singing or dancing or
Mhm.
something like that. But very few, one segment was there who were working,
But
who went
but do
from
you
their
think it
homes
was?
to work. So within all this, yeah,
No, sorry. I was saying, but do you think it was a class thing or a caste thing? I think there is a, like, we tend to sort of
I
map
think it was
mostly.
both. I
Yeah,
think it
but
was both.
I think even amongst the lower classes, the caste aspect of respectability still ends up, controlling women's mobility quite a bit. But I mean, your
Yeah,
experience might have
you see,
been.
they would prefer. I have. Yeah, we would hear all these things कि हम मर जाएंगे, but we would not let our women go out of the house, kind of thing, even
Yeah.
if they were educated enough or capable enough to go out and earn, kind of thing. So we grew up hearing all these kind of things. So and I have friends who are into the media, and lately, of late, also one friend of mine, she told me that her father has never supported the family. It was his grandfather who used to support the family, and her mother was an MA of her times, but she was not allowed
Mm.
to go out and earn because they come from an upper caste.
Yeah,
So it was like
absolutely.
that.
Yeah,
So
absolutely. It's a very
so
recurring
it is.
phenomena. Even in India, you see female labor force participation is actually declining over the decades. Um, but I do think Kalpita
Yes.
had a point to respond to you. Maybe we can continue the conversation after she interjects. Yeah, go for it, Kalpita. Yeah, and then Archana. I know you're in my mind.
Uh,
Yeah,
Yeah, I think Archana is waiting for quite some time,
yeah,
but I'll wrap it up very quickly.
go
So
for it.
I think I just wanted to really flag it off the fact that let's not romanticize Adivasi.
Mm,
Say that they used to be more equal than us, but they are not anymore. We have patriarchy, Brahmanization, Sanskritization happening so much into tribal communities. You see a very high percentage of maternal mortality. You see a very high percentage of anemia happening in tribal women. So it's not as easy to say they were better society than us, and they are quote unquote catching up to whatever society that we people are. I mean, at least I am from that. You are getting into this. So yes, a while back, I think a week back, I was in a tribal wedding, and I saw that there was a Brahmin who was officiating the wedding. So I was very curious, as in why is there a Brahmin in the wedding? And it turns out that it has become something of a trend to call Brahmins and to officiate their wedding, and And so I was asking that like there was a time. So in some conversation, they were saying that there was a time when elders used to come and do all of this, but now everybody thinks that this is more cultural. This is more spiritual that way. And so my point being that I think that's what Adivasi will not dance is also trying to say, that let's not glorify Adivasis and say that these they are of a certain type, they are of a certain tribal dance. No,
mm.
they have their own politics, they have their own ways of looking at everything. And believe, like, unfortunately, we live in a society that their voices are the ones which are the least heard in terms of everything. So yeah, just flagging it off, I think.
No, thanks for that, Arpita. Actually, fair, point for us to take into note. Because it's like while I see for someone growing up in a certain environment where women are not allowed to step out to sort of valorize, like Sonia was saying, the person who is. There's also obviously a context within which that is happening, and us being mindful of both sides is definitely par for the course. But Archana, you had something to say.
Yeah, I think Kalpita has said a lot of what I wanted to say, but I just wanted to, like, we all know that a lot of that literature that glorifies Adivasi women or the marginalized communities as more mobile comes from upper class women and their ideas of like what mobility means. And even now, if you see a lot of people who work outside, that the kind of work they are engaged in, they are forced to engage in because of a lot of like historical and socio-economic factors. So I don't think, I mean, what Kalpita said, that we should not
Yeah.
glorify it. And even in the stories, if you see the blue baby story, so even if it was a girl who initiated the sex, but ultimately she was the one who had to bear the burden. She was the one who felt that okay, she was just the person ghosted on her, and then she was the one who lost her baby. And then even in the Basoji story, she is the one who's doing everything for everybody, but she is being abandoned every time. She is being labeled as a witch. So, and even in the Mohini and that story that Varsha was talking about, a lot of times upper caste people would say that, oh, you can work hard and you can do whatever you want in life. But it's that vicious circle that never allow you to think of any other thing, because you have so many problems in your life. And you might say that this character, Sulochana, what her name was, the Mohini, and I don't know. And you can say that, oh, she's very flaky, and she says something and then she does something. One day she's friends with Mohini, other day she's not. But that is the reality of life. That is how things work. And how the story ends, that oh, she believes that okay, now they have reconciled with the Babu and Mohini has left, and then life would be easy. But that is the tragedy of life. And unfortunately, women are at the receiving end of all that is happening. So I just feel like no matter how much people say that they are mobile and whatever, but they are bearing the brunt of everything that is happening. And we should like always keep acknowledging that. We should never forget it.
Absolutely. Thank you, Archana, for that. Zena, you have something. I just wanted to sort of respond to Archana and then take your comment on. But definitely, I feel like one of the things you mentioned was about this idea in hard work and merit, and I do want to recommend The Caste of Merit by Ajanta Subramaniam as a really good text on understanding the sort of upper caste fallacy in some ways, or like the bogeyman of merit. But other than that, I definitely felt like there is something that can be explored over here about what is it that the body of the Adivasi woman is considered capable of in some ways, in through the text as well. Like I think the November is the month of migration book also. There is this crass dialogue by, the policeman or the person at the railway station who says something like, "You're made for this," right? Like you women, you Santhal women's bodies are made for this at some point when he's um, uh, fucking her basically. And I remember thinking that there is an idea very much so in parallel to what has been the discourse on promiscuity associated with black women, right? Them and their bodies being more sexually sort of active, desiring more, not being satisfied in the respectable sort of ways. And you see some kind of a parallel here also about the body of the tribal woman. So at the same time as she's more mobile, it also means that she's more available, right? And her body has more desire or more lust or whatever it is, designed to be treated in a certain way. And you see that coming across throughout the stories that deal with gender in the book, especially the ones which talk about prostitution, that this particular type of woman knows something that other women don't, which again is related to the socialization and in a lot of ways the sort of forced destitution. But yeah, I just wanted to flag that point. Zena, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think it was same thing. I think it's about choice. Like I as a privileged person have got so much more choice, and them as a really, really at the end of the system, they just didn't, a lot of women just don't have choice, even having a person to marry. There were a couple of ones where there was this one sex worker who falls in love with her client, and I don't remember the story and the name, but then he ends up rejecting her at the end, even after flirting with her and coming to her on and on for months, and then later on rejects her. And she doesn't have a choice then being that, because when she first came, she kind of accepted her fate, and then she starts dreaming of something again, but she cannot get out of the system. And another one was, I think there were few of them were the same, even with the one, I think November migration, that one was again like not having choice. Like she liked the person, but he just basically used her as a body and left. So I think it's like women, not like the more lower you go in the system, it's the women who are at the worst end, because men still go and, you know, go out with whomever or do whatever, or, you know, they can go out of the state. But women, they are poorer, less, so much like pressure on them to just be, you know, like modest or so I think that was my one point. But following on Swati's point, because so my dad is from Bihar, my mum is from Jharkhand, and I have lived in UP for a lot. So I have seen all the three states, and there is, I don't know what it is, but for me personally, Jharkhand has felt much safer than Bihar and UP. And I can see what Swati is coming from, because when you go from all three states, like you do feel this level of like, as a woman, from any you know, caste or class, you just feel like being watched all the time, especially Bihar, I mean, and some parts of UP as well. But when you go to Jharkhand, you don't feel that. You feel kind of a level of, I think it's me being biased as well, probably, but probably I definitely think it's something to do with mainly Santhal, you know, culture, and also like a bit of influence from Bengal, I think. But yeah, I have seen like
and the missionaries. So I'm sorry to interrupt in between. And the missionaries also, because they have a strong effect into the system, into the social system in Jharkhand. So I think that has also played a role to it. So sorry. Please continue.
Yeah.
Something was
But no,
coming
like
up into my mind.
when you just go out, like I've, you know, in Bihar, for example, I just don't like going. But if you go out and stuff, you'll just see men. It's just literally men. And then you go, and in UP as well, I mean, it's the same, I think. But if you go in Jharkhand, you do see, you know, like lots of women out there, men out there. There is a freedom of women being out there and not being judged that much. I mean, there is heavy level of patriarchy, and don't get me wrong, like it is not I'm not saying it's but as a personal day-to-day and growing up with my grandparents and stuff, like I have seen, I feel Jharkhand much more. I still go back whenever I go back, better than, to be honest, Delhi. But
You're so right.
yeah, but
Yes,
yeah, but
Sorry.
can I add?
yeah,
What are you saying, Swati?
Yeah. So I think I think I just wanted to add. I do not know the name of the previous speaker who was. Uh,
Yeah.
Zena.
so I just Stella. So it's actually, I think she actually was able to grasp from where I was coming from,
Yeah.
because when you have lived in a state like that, and I have also been to Bihar once or twice, and I was very scared over there. I still have that kind of mental scar. It was almost 30 years ago, and we were traveling in a bus, in a public bus, and it was so difficult. I still have that scar, the kind of experience I had traveling in Bihar, you know, through a bus or a train. In Jharkhand, I started working at the age of 17. I was, traveling till 8 or 9 in the evening. This was some 30 years ago,
Yeah.
and I was all safe.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
this
I
is
think
when we say about empowerment and all those things, the society has had given us that kind of public, public
access,
space, the public
public access
sphere
to public space.
where
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's actually like a really good point, but like from even the conversations we've had on why loiter, right? Like women's existence in the public sphere is marked out as problematic unless it is legitimized by some kind of reasoning. And I feel like in a place where women are more publicly visible, there is an automatic association with safety. So your point on that is absolutely well taken. But like two people here have
I
been
mean,
waiting for a bit, so I just really want to
yeah,
take.
just one comment.
Okay,
Yeah, just to
yeah,
finish
go.
it, I think it does come from a cultural perspective. Like every state has its own very, you know, like strong culture. And if you go, even though they were like Jharkhand and Bihar used to be the same, but and you have so many similarities. But the moment you go from Patna to Ranchi, you'll just feel a whole cultural difference. And I think it's definitely to do with the people in there. But yeah, anyway, sorry, yeah.
Yeah,
To-
thanks for that. Absolutely. Sarda and then Varsha ji both have their hands raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I think, yeah, I think a few stories stood out, especially because of the Zomato stuff. I was very, I don't know if everyone knows about this. So Zomato rolled out a sort of pure veg fleet in India, and that's a sorry, Zomato is a food delivery app. So, so when that rolled out, there was a lot of discussion about food and caste and everything. I am a vegetarian. My mother's a vegetarian, so I didn't know about the whole caste and food angle very much until this thing happened, and then I read. I won't say read up on it a lot, but I did kind of listen to a lot more discussion when it came to it. And I think what's especially reading the first story, I was this culture of like purity and cleanliness and the sort of like the ugliness that lies underneath, right underneath this, both of these things.
Yeah.
And also sort of uh, because we are also coming from this pandemic. Also, I think there was a story. It is somewhere mentioned in the first story itself about how Gujarat had a lot of uh, sort of like a plague happened, and then it moved to this clean city sort of movement. And then also, I think that also contributed towards this division of lines. I think that sort of like it feels like when we are also, I think, even with the coronavirus, I feel like the divisions are there. Like it's like when we are fighting the all of these things, we're all, yes, let's all be together and all of it. But I do think that once the pandemic or everything like kind of shuts down, I think some divisions get deeper there. That felt, and also the cleanliness of it all. Also,
Yeah.
yeah, the very Brahminical fact of it was coming out a lot to me about the how sort of cleanliness was purity and how much it was like desired, and you have to
Yeah.
clean this, you have to clean that, and the hiding of things.
Food.
I have seen this happen around me also. And
Yeah.
also I was reading about it. So places where people are made to go out of their some they're made to go out of their own homes because they cooked not and stuff like that. So it was a very interesting read. And also I would like to share a link in the group chat where there was, I think, the Basuji story mentioned about a mining community, a mining city. And there's this very nice article, sort of like a video in Third Eye Portal, which was also talking about a mining city and talking about how while mining was like, it did give all of these people opportunities and all of these options and everything, it did in the end up destroying the environment. And also this mining, it is a limited resource. After a while, the mining, it dries up. And then what happens to the city?
Absolutely.
And
Yeah,
so
it's a key
I would also
thing.
like to share that if anyone's
Please,
interested.
please do, Sarda. That's very, very kind of you. And thanks for bringing up the politics of food with Zomato. I mean, for those who are not aware, Zomato had recently launched a veg only, pure veg fleet for delivering veg food. And somebody had questioned them, asking whether their packaging was not, tight enough for people to, contaminate veg and non-veg food. And they said, no, sometimes it's about the smell that lingers in a box where veg food and non-veg food tightly sealed sits together. So, conversations about hygiene and purity are not really just about actual contamination, but also about the smells and the um, molecules in some ways interacting with each other. Like I remember reading for the first time that in Bengal, for instance, in some, and I'm sure we've all had some kind of experiences as women, right? If you're menstruating, don't enter the kitchen, don't touch a pickle, don't eat with this particular, and in Bengal, while cooking, if you're touching a vegetable, then you have to wash your hand and then cook again. I mean, at least it used to be the case in a lot of norms around what is pure and what is impure. A very good introduction to what these kinds of implicit things look like from the outside was Sarah Lamb's book called White Saris and Sweet Mangoes. There's a chapter where she's talking about purity and her understanding of caste as an outsider who has no knowledge of what it means, right? And so she used to say things like, this is about molecules of air interacting. If I was if I had not taken a bath and I sat on the same mat as you did, you became impure even if I didn't touch you, right? And so she was like, I don't know what it was. And so it was very, for me, it was very eye opening, because there is a way in which a lot of us have grown up with certain rules without actually understanding how they play out. And explaining the concept of jhuta or jhutan to somebody from an outside India kind of context will force you to sort of have to use the ideas of caste to understand and explain those characters. But we don't see it necessarily. We see it as a hygiene thing, but we know, if we scratch the surface a little more, we know that it's a lot more about caste. Um, Varsha ji,
Just one more point. If anyone's interested in food and purity and caste and stuff, if you understand Hindi, please do check out Anurag minus Varma's Cafe Culture. He has a podcast on it. If you do understand it, it's not.
absolutely. I've also heard that. It's quite nice. So I recommend that. And I'm putting in the other two. Um, Varsha ji had something, but I just want to point out before that, one second, a comment on marriages. Um, and I think, I'm sorry, I missed it. I think Sarda's point only about how Periyar wanted people to marry each other without the presence of Brahmins, which was nullified. I mean, of course, in the Indian context, you have a very specific kind of marriage being recognized as a Hindu marriage, and that is also a legacy of colonialism, in that you didn't know how to make a marriage a formal thing, right? So how do you describe that a marriage has happened? So ultimately, it boiled down to quote unquote essentials, and those essentials were obviously Brahminical in nature, in that you needed to have a fire and you needed to have 7 rounds around it and you needed to have an exchange of garlands, a lot of things which were not done in marriages from communities at the borders of India, especially like tribal communities. So it's interesting that we're trying to adapt to a lot of new modern ideas, but those ideas are themselves sort of like they are adapting and encapsulating patriarchy and casteism within themselves, whether it's Zomato or it's, say, the idea of female priests, for instance, or priests in a tribal wedding. We're trying to be cool, but ultimately what we're doing is reproducing a lot of these hierarchies. So it's kind of interesting, the intersection of techno-modernism and patriarchy, casteism, that is kind of co-constitutive in a way that we would not have expected it to be. Um, right. Varsha, you had something to say. And thanks, Kalpita, for
Yeah,
that.
yeah. As regards, the Zomato thing, my daughter lives in a PG in Mumbai, and they have a veg fridge and a non-veg fridge. So in the veg fridge, earlier there was only one fridge, but if my daughter kept eggs, everybody had a problem because it seemed that like keeping eggs would contaminate all the food. So then another fridge was in which non-veg stuff could be kept. So and all of them are liberal arts students, by the way. So
There are a lot of there are actually a lot of institutionalized food-based discrimination incidents that we're hearing of today. Like I think IIT Bombay canteen also made it like a separate thali.
Name University is a liberal arts college that's completely legitimate.
But
So you can think of oxymoron
very,
better
very
than
two
that.
steps,
So
2 steps forward, 2 steps, 1 steps back. Sorry, like other
yeah,
way.
so I was detecting that there was someone, I think Swati, who was saying that the women are very agile, and others were saying that no, they are still oppressed. But I think in the stories themselves, both things are brought out so beautifully. Wanted to read out a little bit, 2 lines from Basoji.
Yeah.
So this is what he says about her. How well she spoke, this lady in the white cotton sari. What sway she held over her listeners. She laughed a booming, confident laugh, tossing her head back, and a few salt and pepper strands fluttered over her temples. And then again, he says, her strong old arms lifted the hefty water-filled brass pitcher onto her hip with ease, and she marched home with a gait that belied her age. So, although Basuji is clearly oppressed multiple times, first her sons chuck her away and call her a, witch or something. And then again, the story repeats. But even in the end, she's the one who walks off, and because she does not want to be oppressed. And I think a story after story, even the other story about Subhashini, in which her son dies and she's taking jalebis for him, and he doesn't wait. He says all the women who worked in the aluminum factory, in the soap factory, in Badrinath Seth's orchard, in the jam factory, in the poultry farm, in various construction sites all over Chakulia, young and old, the younger ones in synthetic cheap saris, the older ones in hand-dyed loom saris worn in the traditional way. They carried multi-tiered aluminum tiffin carriers, striped gamchas over their shoulders, and walked, laughed, gossiped, giggled all the way home. And the way they walk is described in such detail. So I think the fact that tribal women are agile, they are, physical in a way that UP Bihar women are not, is again and again brought out in many positive ways. And it is the upper caste men who think that they are made only for sex or something. So I think he captures this, what to say, the contradiction uh, very beautifully. That here are women who are powerful, who are physical, who are not, scared of laughing or walking by themselves and doing hard work. Yet,
I think
you know,
that is such a beautiful this thing, because I'm also thinking here of like Suit Nakharo at some point in the Liberation of Sita chapter. Like, we're not used to a woman. There is a retelling in which she is like an outsider, and we're not used to women being forward, we women asking and being empowered, expressing interest or desire in another man. And you see the connections there between the understanding of women in certain ways, and when the moment they don't adhere to that, we automatically think that they are an aberration, and then there's a discomfort with how to categorize them, how to think about them, how to deal with them, and then they're either categorized as witches or like vixens, or so that's quite interesting. Thank you for pointing out, Varsha ji. Um, somebody has yes,
I do not know where to raise my hand. I'm unable to do that,
no
find
problem.
that thing, but I want to pitch in and just make a point here. So while we are discussing about, the Adivasi women, because and their mobility and the way they are most, uh, they turn out to be more strong compared to other women from the Hindi belt. So we shouldn't forget the political atmosphere of all these states in the last 100 years. It was these all the three states. It's where the left movement had been very active from the pre-independence era till the 70s and 80s and even 90s, the labor union and all that kind of politics. And I think that has definitely played a significant role in the way they have projected themselves, in the way they have handled their life, and the way they have fought with everything, even with the male gazing. When I said that they would come in a single piece of sari and they would travel from the outer skirts, uh, from the forest area to the main city by catching the 4 a.m. train. It was all a group of 10, 12 women. Men were accompanying them, and they were carrying, 100 kgs of vegetables with them, fruits with them. So they did not need these to protect them. Right? So both these things, the political vision, when we are talking about or discussing about the way empowerment or strength or anything, we should not forget the way society was changing, the kind of acceptance that they were getting. If the union wanted them to even raise all of in clubs, Zindabad, so that gave them the strength to fight for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. No, you're
After
correct.
in all these states,
Sorry. I think there's a little bit of a lag between me saying and it reaching you. But I said, yeah, you're absolutely right in terms of the politics of a lot of the history and politics of a lot of these states. It's interesting to me though, like you raised the
and
point
and
about,
once and the second point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the second point, sorry, I wouldn't come again and disturb. I wanted to make regarding the food politics, So we are talking about Zomato and everything, Swiggy, etc. So I like, and I was married. My into a family. My in-laws are from Sitamarhi, which is a town, or which is a district in
Your voice is cracking again, Swati.
the erstwhile Bihar. Am I coming closer?
Yeah, now it's better.
So I'm just roaming around my house wherever it catches.
Yeah.
So when we talk about the food politics, as I said, so it was like, my in-laws and my husband's also, they were all fish eating, meat eating, mutton eating people. But I saw something different over there. Like one of my sister-in-laws uh, uh, cook or eat non-veg food. So I was given the responsibility to cook fish or mutton or non-veg food, whatever. So once, it was very early, some 20 years ago. So
Mm.
they would have a different stove and different utensils and everything. And I was made to sit outside the kitchen into an open area where
Wow.
I was told, okay, you have to cook it over there. So everybody would eat it. So it was something very difficult for me to absorb and understand how, you know, they had a pond where every day they would have fish as our snacks every evening. Still, this kind of practice was practiced in the house where the woman who is cooking non-veg food, she has to come out of the kitchen, and there was a different kind of setup where she had to cook it. So once I had touched the hand pump and took out the water, and one of my sister-in-laws was like, no, gone waste, ye ho gaya, wo ho gaya, the kind of,
Yeah.
I don't know what was that.
No,
So
I mean, it
it
is.
was a kind of a cultural harmony.
Yeah, it also comes, like you said, like, I mean, it's both coming from a caste place, but also yeah, see, What's That Smell by Shivani Kapoor. Definitely, I would also highly recommend that. Shivani is someone I know. She was also my teacher. But
Yeah,
thank
yeah.
you so much, Swati, for that. Uh, Shekhar sir has just joined us. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us in this chat. We have been very, like, vociferously discussing your book for the last hour. Um, and uh, can you say something? We'll then tell you if you're audible. I think there is a little bit of a lag, but if you say something, we'll get to know. Yeah, I think we can hear you now. Can you say something?
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, now
Yeah,
you
yeah.
are.
Yeah, thank you. I just let go of my. Hello,
Okay.
everyone.
Thank you so much, sir, for joining us. This is really, really kind of you, and thank you so much to Varsha ma'am for connecting us with you. Um,
My
um,
pleasure.
I just wanted to tell you that we've been talking for the last 1 hour about your book and been
Yeah.
like having such vociferous, nice discussions on it. Thank you so much for writing it. I will open it up to everybody for their questions. Um, but just to sort of start the conversation, can you tell us a little bit more about how you uh, thought of bringing together these stories and compiling them in this kind of book? How did the book take up the form that it does now? And do you have any particular favorite in your um in the book as your favorite story? As I'm interested, that's just the side
Okay.
question. But then we'll open it up to questions for everybody.
Sure. Thank you, Tanya. So the thing is, I had just published my first book, which was the novel, The Mysterious Element of Rupee Basket.
Mm-hmm.
It was in the year 2014. It completed 10 years of publication this year in January 2024. So the team which I had worked with, there was Mr. Ravi Singh, the publisher,
Mm-hmm.
and there was Anurag Basnet, my editor, with whom I worked on Rupee Basket. So Ruby Basket was published by Aleph, and Ravi, he sort of started a new house after that called Speaking Tiger. And then he asked me if, uh, and then he actually told me that he was starting this new publishing house, and a lot of people who I had worked with, who Ravi had worked with, like Anurag, they were all moving to this new publishing house, and if I would like to join them. And I said, yeah, okay, why not? Comfortable working with them. I enjoyed working with them. So I said, yeah. So this was in 2014. So Speaking Tiger, I think it was supposed to come in uh, 2015. I mean, my book of stories came in 2015. So we were just looking up for follow-up to Rupi Bhate. So I told Ravi and Anurag that, yes, I have a few stories. So if we can just bring those together. So these stories I had been writing since the year 2002. Like there is this story in the collection, Basojhi's story. I wrote this in 2002, and it was published in 2007 as an independent story in the journal Indian Literature, published by the Sahitya Academy, the bi-monthly English language journal. So in this way, I all the stories. Not all. I think there were just 7 or 8 stories which were ready. Like his story was ready. It was published first as Basumai story, and in this collection, the edited version came, or the revised version, it came as Basoji's story. Then Desire, Divination, and Death was there. It was also published in Indian literature. There is this story called Sons. I think it was the second story in the collection. So this was published as Science in Northeast Review. Aruni Kashyap was the editor there, and Sumana Roy was there. Then Sumana was also one of the first readers of my novel Rupi Baske. And Date Meet was there. Date Meet, the original title of it was Don't Mix With Them, They Eat Meat. It was published in this magazine which was published from Nepal, Lalit. And there was another story, Merely a Whore was published, Four Quarters Review. So I think I wrote 2 new stories for the book which we now know as the Adivasi Wilderness. One is, let me remember, November is the month of migrations, of course, and another one was Getting Even. So these were the 2 new stories which I wrote. And then we put together these 10 stories. This collection was just supposed to be my first writing. And it was I joined Ravi in his new endeavor, this new public publishing house, Speaking Tiger. We did not expect a lot of things from this collection. It wasn't like we had been working on it for years and years, and it was some very ambitious book. Nothing like that. It was something like put together in a hurry. Put together in a hurry, but in a thought out manner, in a proper way. So it was it was just a few months it took us to complete this. So to see that this book, which was put together in such a way, to see this book to be received in such a manner, to be attending actually a book club meeting on this one. So it is, I think, yes, a huge thing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Sir, this is our pleasure, absolutely. Like we've been, I mean, I was just thinking that for me personally, I really enjoy reading short stories, but
Thank you.
and I think that I mean, novels are obviously another beautiful form of writing,
Mhm.
but sometimes it's harder to get the point across in like fewer words, right? And in all your stories,
Yeah.
I feel like there was such a gut punch in, like, even November is the migration month. It's barely any length, but so visceral and so powerful in that. I think that's all extremely. Is it harder to write short stories as far as you're concerned, or you think that which is your preferred form?
I mean, both my preferred forms. Like, it depends upon the time, because time is luxury. I have a day job, so managing work and then writing, it needs a lot of concentration. Like fiction is more difficult than writing non-fiction, because this is something which I have realized now, because since I'm not getting the time, let me just frame it in a different way. So fiction, it requires concentration, it requires time, it also requires that imagination. And for imagination, I mean, like, you need to have a free mind, right? So that is the reason why I am not being able to write too much fiction nowadays. But but since I love to write, I cannot stop writing. I'm writing essays, I'm writing long forms, talking to people, visiting places, and then thinking about what this thing must be. I should write about this. Like, for example, in 2022, a very longish essay of mine was published. It's called Horses. So I work in this place called Chandil in Jharkhand, which this place is between Jamshedpur and Ranchi, 100 kilometers from Ranchi and 30 kilometers from Jamshedpur. So in this, I saw a number of what you call it, horse statues. I think I will give you a link here in the chat section. I'll give you a link. Okay. So the thing is, and I was wondering what exactly these horse statues mean. And then I went on researching on this. I roamed around the place. I traveled to villages and I talked to people. And then I came to know, the story behind these hot studies. And so I wrote about it. And this was published in this very beautiful online magazine for which is called 52. Unfortunately, they have stopped publishing now. But if you get the opportunity, please go through all the, what you call it, really amazing. And yeah, so I'm enjoying writing non-fiction nowadays more, because it does not, force you to imagine things, and it gives you the opportunity to meet people, and it's fun to know newer things. So yeah, but fiction is challenging. In fiction, I enjoy both short stories as well as novels, but the thing is, it also depends upon the time. So for now, it's just
Absolutely.
essays for me.
You just told us about the inspiration for horses, but Zena's question is about the general collation of books, stories in the Adivasi Will Not Dance. She's asking what is the inspiration for these stories, and how did you conceive of them?
Okay, so the thing is, there was not exactly any inspiration, like uh, getting even, and November month of migration, they were set in Pakur. I was working in a place called Pakur then. So the situation there, they sort of spurred me to write those stories. They were mostly observation. Not stories are final, or the ideas that I put forward are final. They are just my observations, what I see on ground. Basoji's story, of course, was based on this witch thing, like women who are branded witches, and they are, sort of chased away from their properties, from their families. Sons was more like a family drama, like two babies being born on the same day, same time around, but both of them uh, taking up different paths in life. And the Eat Meat, of course, was set up on the experience of a Santhal family, which was in Gujarat at the time of the 2002 pogrom. So these are the inspirations.
Thank you so much. I think Varsha ji has a question.
Please,
Uh,
please, please.
Yeah. So, hi. I
Hi.
personally enjoyed the story of Mohini and Sulochana so much. I read it
Yeah.
twice, and I think that is also while it has that despair and pathos and the exploitation, but it also got a comic vein running through this character of Sulochana.
Yeah.
So I'd like to hear more about that story. And I also want to know, what did you read when you were a kid, when you were in school? And when first did you think that, I'll write stories? And because you became a doctor, right?
Yeah.
But at the back of your mind, somewhere, even while you were, doing your MBBS, the fact that you want to write stories must have been there. So, how was this, like thing? Were you always writing, or did you decide to write at some point, and how did it come about?
Okay, so thank you, Varsha. I'll start with this question about Sulochana. So, from the story, you can tell that the story is set in a township where there are quarters, right? And quarters are like divided on the basis of the employees or the workers' ranks. So, so yes, this was set, or rather, this place was inspired by my life in Mobhandar, where I have grown up, in the township of the copper company where my parents used to work. And yes, this is also like most of my stories based on people I have met, people who I have known, and people who have left me. So Sulochana, in real life, the person upon whom I based this character, she was, yeah, she was this, very feisty and fighting for what she wanted, kind of a person. And I admired her, and that is how this character of Sulochana was born. And regarding my writing life, well, my usual review and hard boys and all, that is how I, spent my childhood reading. And when I grew up, I got introduced to Jane Austen, of course. Sense and Sensibility was the first work by her which I read. Then, while I was in school, I read Arundhati Roy's God of Small Things. Then I also read those thick novels. I read Daniel Steele's Wings and Jeffrey Archer's Honor Among Thieves. I still remember those books' names. And but yes, I loved writing. I did not know that maybe I'll publish something one day, but to see one's name in print, to have that proof that look, I've written this and it has been published here, and this carries my name, that byline, that is, it makes you so proud and feel so good about yourself. So the first work which was published in a bigger place, my work with it was a story which came in the Asian Age newspaper. And I was so happy. I was in Sweden at that time. The year was 1998 December. And yeah, and then I thought that, yeah, maybe I can write a book one day. And yes, of course, there are two people I want to mention. One is Mr. Upamanyu Chatterjee, who I okay. So one is
Sorry.
am I audible?
Yeah, I think Sonia's thing got unmuted. I've muted her, but please continue, sir.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. So there are these two writers I want to mention. They are not actually writers. I mean, yes, of course they are writers. I cannot say they're not writers, sorry. But the thing is, the thing which struck me about them at that time was that their main professions were different. Like the first one was Mr. Upamanyu Chatterjee, like I said, and he's an IS officer. He was, I think, a bureaucrat or a diplomat. A bureaucrat, yeah, maybe. Okay, so his novel English August, it is a classic, of course.
Yeah.
And then another person was Deshpande, who we were all a huge fan of because it was the late 1990s and she was a VJ on MTV, and she was all over the place, and she also did this films, Bombay and Is Raat Ki Subah Nahi. And then she also came up with this book of stories and poems, 50 and Done. Okay, so I was like, wow, if these people, they can have different careers and still they can write and publish books, then why can't I? Okay. And so yeah, this got me going. And I think like in 2017 or 2018, I'm not sure, I think it was 2017 or 16, at the Times Lit Fest in Bangalore, I met Tara Deshpande, and I was carrying my copy of 50 and Done from 1999 hardcover. I think
Wow.
it's out of print now. HarperCollins India, and went to her and said, "Sign this book for me." And she was like, "Are you serious?" And I was like, "Oh yes, I'm serious. I'm a fan." So
That is so sweet, sir. We also hopefully will meet you sometime in person and get a signature on our copy of Adivasi
yeah,
Vrinda
maybe one day I'll meet Manu Chatterjee as well and tell him that, look, I used to the think that, yeah, a person can have a different job and yet write books, and see, I have done it, and you inspired me. So maybe I can.
So lovely. I think Sonia, did you have anything to say? Or did I like mute you, or was that an accidental? Just checking. Um,
No, no, that was an accident. Sorry.
okay. So, but sorry, go ahead. Were you saying something? Okay, no, that was an accident. No, so I really do. I mean, I think it's really nice to hear that, there is one sort of stray book that can change the course of a person's life, and that is actually the power of books.
Yes,
Right?
yes, yes.
And I
Yeah.
really did want to talk about how powerful your book has been for people. Like we were discussing in this book club, how a lot of mainstream fiction and narratives have not centered characters from the Adivasi community. And I think your book and the reception also that it received, it was like a big, powerful break in some ways in the literature, right? Like that did not exist. And obviously, there is a politics within which it was enmeshed as well, right? And there was obviously some brickbat in terms of so how did you deal with that? How did it make you feel to have, made a difference in some ways, but also having to deal with the aftermath? Can you just tell us a little bit about the afterlife of the book for
It
you?
was traumatic. It was something which I do not want to remember. But the thing is, I cannot really take that part out of my life or whatever I'm doing, because it is something that I have faced. So the thing is, it was scary, of course, but I had the support of my friends, my well-wishers, my publishers, my editors, and I'm thankful to all of them. And I think the one step which I took was I did not respond to the trolls, or I did not like, okay, at first we were all responding, we were all fighting like, why you're doing this to me. ठीक है. But then I realized that no, there's no use. Okay. And then when I was suspended from my job and my book was, what you call it, banned, it became clear that now there's, of course, no point, writing on the internet where this actually began on Facebook and social media. If I want to prove myself, if I want to prove that yes, I have been right, then I have to go on writing. Okay. So this banning and suspension, it happened in the year 2017, August 2017. Ban stayed till December 20. My suspension was till July 2018, 11 months. Okay, so I returned home to my parents, and then I continued writing whatever I could. I did translations. I translated some poems by Parimal Hansda, who is a teacher, belongs to a Santhal community, and a poet. And he won the Sahitya Academy Yuva Puraskar for Santhali in the year 2016. So I translated his poems for Scroll. Then I translated Mr. Manish Mundra, the film producer, his poems, which were published from Hindi, which were published in the Hindu. Then I did an essay for another very beautiful magazine which has stopped publishing now. It is called The Indian Poetry. So I wrote an essay for that. Then I did, a book review, or rather a semi-profile, Mr. Manoranjan Vyapari. It was my, what you call it, my thoughts on his book, Autobiography of a Chandal Life, which was published in National Herald. And I kept on writing. When I put together, and of course, I wrote my first children's book, Jwala Kumar and the Book of Fire and the Gift of Fire, which was published in mid 2018. So, and I put together my next book with Speaking Tiger, which was My Father's Garden, which I think came in December 2018. So I did not stop. I did not think. Of course, there was this very kind of a very negative feeling in me that, I was feeling like a complete loser. Like I was sitting at home. I was not working. I was not earning anything. I feel like a complete burden. But then I had this hope that no, this is temporary. Whatever will come, I'll see. But I'll just keep on writing. If my writing has, brought me here, then of course it will take me anywhere. So that's it.
No, that is
But of course, the support from my family, the support from my friends, my readers, the people in publishing, it was amazing. So I couldn't have done with the support, because this support told me that yes, there are people who are looking out for you who are, looking after you. So
That
that's
is
all I can say.
that is so nice, sir. I mean, and like today, I think this book is a legacy that will stay. I mean, I was just reading about how it's being translated into Austrian, German, and so I mean,
Austrian German, yeah. The Austrian German deal has happened, but the book hasn't actually come out, so we are following up on it. So let's see.
but it's still beautiful that I mean, I think there will be kids, there will be people reading this book and then seeing themselves
Yeah,
and their stories reflected in its pages. And thank you to you for also introducing us, and like especially say someone like me, to a world that I did not know much about. And they say books are the best way to travel the world, and your book is like such a
true, true.
beautiful glimpse into all the trials, tribulations, and still agency of the people of Jharkhand. So, I mean, really, thank you so much for you endured a lot, but you have given us a gift that will
Thank
not
you,
stop
thank you.
giving. Um, but would
I hope I'm able to keep on writing. So thank you.
that is the best gift to us readers, who we will keep reading.
Yeah,
Please do keep writing. Um, but um,
thank you.
I'm just checking if there are any other comments. Kalpita was telling us that actually she was reading. We were reading today Mahasita Devi's Draupadi in conversation with your book, and she said that she had that
Yeah,
as part of
yeah.
her syllabus also in one of the courses that she did. So I mean, your book is not just about us knowing about a particular place. It's also so much learning, and I think for that that learning will never stop. So, unless anyone else has,
Okay. Uh,
yeah, please.
Tanya, there's a question by Zina. She asked me what the inspiration for the stories. So yeah, my inspiration for the stories was just, what I saw around me, like from my life in an industrial township to my work as a government doctor in a small place, and then coming back to the politics of the place and all those people. So yeah, that is what I have seen. Those are my inspiration. Yeah.
You didn't tell us, sir, what is your favorite story from the from
All
the
are my favorite.
collection?
All are my favorite. But I do not know. I have the special love for this one. Uh, Eating with the Enemy, the Sulochana story, because
Yeah, I love that.
it's
That is
Oh my God.
beautiful, beautiful.
just
That
such a
character
comic
is
thing.
God.
I mean, it is a sad story. It is a story of abuse, of
That's
exploitation, of opportunism, like the lengths that you can go to try to achieve what you want. But yeah, aren't all of us like that? Like, if we want something, then we have to have it. Or, being envious of other people who have that thing and we can't have it. And we being all, indignant, like, why? What have I done? Why can't I have it? Those feelings. So it is, I think, I mean, even I am like that person. So yeah, I can see myself in
I
that.
I had just one short question.
yeah.
Please,
As a
please.
translator, you include so many, Bangla words,
Mhm.
Santhal words, and sometimes complete sentences also from
Mhm.
other languages, and without bothering to give their meaning, but their
Mhm.
meaning is completely correct. So I was wondering, how was your experience with the editing, with your editor, whether it was Basnet or Ravi? Uh,
Yeah.
did they question it? Did you insist, or and then get your way, or how was it?
This is very interesting. What I do is, see, when I include entire Bangla sentence, I mean, it is not what you call the Bhadralok Bangla. It is
Hmm.
that
It's
Rar Bangla, the
right,
complete
right.
colloquial thing. Okay, and we cannot question whether it's right or not because we have been communicating in it.
Mm.
So it cannot be wrong. Okay, so the thing is, in origin, why I put those sentences or words? I put those sentences and words because they're actually amusing. They have, like made me laugh. Okay, or they have made me
They're
think.
very powerful. They're
It's
very
very
powerful.
powerful. Yeah,
Your
yeah.
English editor,
So
uh,
so
how
this was what I'm doing. So when I put those lines, okay, of course no one is going to, I mean, unless you are familiar with a particular language or that particular milieu, you won't understand it, right? So how do I convince my editors? The thing is, I read it out to them the way it has been written or the way it is spoken. Okay, and then I look at their reaction, and then when they get the meaning of it, they are like, oh my god, it is this thing. Okay, and then they agree, okay, let us put it in this way, and maybe we can explain it in some other line, some other paragraph, or maybe we'll leave it just like that because it is really really beautiful. If someone is so serious that, yeah, what is this line? Let me find out about it. Okay. And then they do their research and then they come to know what its meaning is. So they will understand it and they'll definitely enjoy it. So yeah, that is how
That's
I do it.
actually really nice. That's actually wonderful because I did like in a couple of places want to look up what I did. So like I said,
Yeah.
it's actually really wonderful to keep that, and I think it does something extra to the story, especially for those who can already understand it. It adds something that is like an inside joke. I think it's all with the reader, so in a way I
Like
think
an
it
inside joke. True.
makes it special.
Yeah.
So right, I think we're almost out of time. Would anyone have any final comments, anything else you want to ask, sir? um If not, then I would just take this opportunity to say thank you so much, sir, for staying with us for this half an hour, this
Thank
small
you so much.
chat, but
Yeah.
it was really lovely. It was really lovely to hear from you and from your inspirations, the way you write, the way you think about writing. We're so glad you chose to keep writing, and that we hope to keep reading your other stories in the future as well. And this
Thank you.
conversation has been recorded, so I'll be very happy to share a snippet of it with you and any other comments from the readers
Sure. You may.
who
Acha,
couldn't join in today.
can I pick some of my other works which are forthcoming?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
please, absolutely.
Okay, so in May, just the next month, an essay of mine will be published in the magazine The Caravan. Okay.
I
Yeah.
tried.
Thank you. And then I'm looking forward to the publication of my novel, which was supposed to have been published in the year 2016, but the thing is the book ban and the suspension. So it kept us from, working on it. So it will come, I think, this year or maybe early or mid next year from Speaking Tiger. And then I have a children's book coming from Speaking Tiger and another children's book coming from Westland. So this is how I have been, managing my time outside of work. So hopefully I'm able to, do
Right.
more writing. That's it.
I think if anything, this is inspiring. You're managing all this along with a job, and you're like we're like PhD things you're
And
doing.
of course, the translations too. Some translations too, yeah.
The translations.
But Vatsala, I think she wanted to say something. You have your hand raised, Vatsala?
Wanted to say that we enjoyed They Eat Meat, especially how it ended, especially also because environment that we live in where things are so pessimistic and so polarized. To read a story, like I've read of Godra Rights, keep reading about it, and also for context for my stories. But this particular one, because it instilled hope and how the community banded together to protect the family, gave me a lot of hope. So thank you for writing that one. Also, it was very different. Riots have been written, at least the Godra riots.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much, sir. On that note, I think we'll all say goodbye to you and we will stay in touch and definitely keep an eye out for your next works as they come out. Right?
Sure.
So thank you so much for
Thank
joining.
you.
Okay, bye
Bye-bye.
everyone and see you next month. Take care. Bye. Bye.